Hey, what's going on out there, YouTube family? This is Samuel Leggett here, representing Team JVS, here for a game review. Now, this will not be a spoiler-filled review. I'm going to do my best to effectively give you guys a subjective and personal perspective on this game without spoiling anything. I don't know if I'll be able to do it well, but I'm going to do the best I can because 2013 is The Last of Us that was written and produced and done by Neil Druckmann was by far one of the greatest games I've ever played. Like on the stratosphere of Grand Theft Auto San Andreas or Halo 3. Like this is one of the most amazing story-driven game that had two characters that I had a not just emotional connection to. I was driven to get through the race for them, with them. And one of the biggest things, if you have not actually played the first game, I would warn you, because at the end of the first game, one of the big pivotal points that happens is that, the Ellie is infected, but she is immune, and she's been bitten. And so they get her to the Fireflies get her to where she needs to be, but the realization sets in on Joel, and that it's possible to create a cure, but it's impossible to create a cure and save her. And for him, that was unacceptable. And he had already lost one daughter, and he was not going to lose another. And from that point, he removed anybody out of the equation, and he got her out of there without telling her. And that decision caused a ripple effect that transcends everything about the effectiveness, the worries, the hate, everything about what makes up this game coming from that specific moment. And that's the best way I can kind of paint a picture of this, because these are years down the line when these characters Ellie and Joel pick back up, and the world is very different. They are in a very different place, and they seem happier, but there's this overlying cloud that has changed their emotional relationship for the worse in so many different respects. But this was written by Neil Druckmann, as I said, writer and also creator. But it's also co-written by, and a narrative lead by Haley Wargren Gross, who actually did a big bulk of the writing for Westworld Season 1 and different other projects. And I'm going to say off the bat, as far as the writing, a lot of people do not like the way that the plot was in this game. A lot of people felt as though it was polarizing, it was unrelenting. And not just that, it wasn't a linear based storyline. The way that it's told most of the time is that there's a lot of different going back. Like there's pieces of the puzzle that are missing. And what it does is either one is going to provoke you to get upset, or two is going to make you engage to the point oh my gosh, I can't believe this is happening. How did we get here? And I think that's what they ultimately really wanted, but some people are going to have this different effect of it. But me personally, I love that it wasn't a linear storyline. I love that, I got to this certain point, but I was like, wait, why did this person do this? How could somebody do something so evil and callous and demented and just continue to function like nothing happened? Like, what happened to this person to bring to that point? Now, with that choice, Neil is going to be probably, from most of you guys' perspective, either one side of the spectrum or the other. Either you're going to not respect or like the way that he drove the narrative for this, because what this game did for me as an actual gamer is it puts me in the shoes of two different terrible circumstances. One is the character Ellie, who is dealing with a lot of hurt, a lot of pain off the rip, but trying to work in this place of normalcy, and then that gets ripped from her. And then it's this journey of discovery and redemption and this need for vengeance, right? And then this other character who's very new to this franchise named Abby, who very much so has her own set of skills, has her own backstory, and also has her own focus on revenge and redemption. And these intersect and collide with the worst kind of circumstance you could even think of. And from the decision that was made from the first game, again, as I said, this paints this crazy narrative that, for me, it was hard most of the time playing as Ellie or Abby. For Abby, I was kind of I feel as though I don't want to play as this character because of the situation they put me in, where they put my main characters in, Ellie and Abby. I'm sorry, oh my gosh, Ellie and Joel. But then on the other side of it, when I was playing as Ellie, I was like, you're playing with so much hate, and like, you're willing to cross lines that you've never crossed before. And it was so uncomfortable. There was one moment that happens where Ellie is trying to find someone, and Ellie, to try to get information, has to do some things that I wasn't comfortable with. I was kind of like, I don't want to do this. Give me another option here. Can we take option B? And there was no option B. And I think that from that perspective, it makes you go through the story like this. Like you're literally, whoa. And for some people, that's going to be vastly uncomfortable. For some people, that is not going to be acceptable for them. I took it at stride. When I got through my first 2.5 hour mark, I'm not going to tell you guys what the actual situation that happened with Ellie or Joel or Abby. But let's just say that I questioned whether or not I could continue. I questioned it because every part of my emotions were just broken down. And I had to take a subjective pause and just kind of be like, you know what, I need a moment. I took 24 hours and I went back and I continued the story. And I continued, got, hit. But it was that moment that I kind of realized that this is going to be a game that is going to make me feel emotions that I never expected. A large majority of the flashback sequences, or not, normally the flashback sequences are the ones that give you like the feelings of like dread or worry or anger, but most of these flashback sequences are some of the most beautiful, sincere moments with Ellie and Joel and Abby with her characters as well and her backstory that flush them out in ways that add so many multifaceted layers to their characters, to the world around them that they've built until they eventually reconnect and recollide. And it's hard. It's not just emotionally hard. It is physically hard to try to maneuver around, because then at a certain point, either you choose to be subjective and look at it from both standpoints, or one or the other, you're going to look at like, no, this person was wrong. No, this person is not right, or whatever. And I think that that's where you're going to lose some gamers. Some gamers are going to have like their hearts, ripped out, and they're not going to be able to accept the way this goes. For me, looking at it as a critic, this is masterful storytelling, because what it does is it invokes certain responses emotionally and psychologically and morally and amorally that comes from places of hurt and pain and ridicule that brings out the most terrible, traumatic levels of hate and evil and malice intent that drive people to do some terrible things in this game. Like terrible, terrible things. Every single one of the characters that are in this game, I'll say two different things about them. One, none of them are clean. Not one. Not one character that is in this game is clean, have their hands clean. Everybody's got blood on their hands. But every single one, you can understand, empathize, and understand how they got to their place. There's a character that Abby knows, a character named Owen. And I was like, initially I was kind of like, Owen, he seems weird, like he's such a douche, But then you understand like certain levels of pain and hurt that he's battling and dealing with the world around him and his connection with Abby. And I'm just like, oh, jeez. Then you have like a new character that interacts with Ellie, two new characters in Jesse and Dina. Dina is very much so, like if you've seen the trailers, you know that they have like an emotional connection to each other and a physical one. But you don't know how they got to that point. You don't know what surrounds it, and you don't know where they're going to go. And the journey of Dina and Ellie, as well as Jesse, is hard. It is emotionally taxing. It is beautiful. It is coming from a very real, visceral place that I can't speak enough on. And then you have like the characters that we know, who's the core characters normally, which is Ellie, Joel, and Tommy. Tommy makes a recall back into this. But matter of fact, they do more with Tommy that I appreciated, for good or bad, regardless of where his character goes, regardless of even where Joel's character goes. Joel and Tommy are painted in different lights in this game that a lot of people are going to be upset about as well. But to be fair, again, this goes back to the way the game begins and the way that it ended from the very first one, that catapults people's perspective of things. And a lot of times you don't want to look at your characters or the people that you've like looked up to in this demoralizing or negative perspective. Sometimes even like to the point of their own detriment as characters, you feel as though they're not validated or they're not being looked after, they're not cared for. But I don't think that's what's happening. I don't think that's what Neil or his team are trying to do. He's showing the imperfections and the difficulties of decisions that you make, but more than anything, the ramifications of those decisions. There is a cause and effect that happens, and every single decision that's happening, even in this game, has traumatic effects. Traumatic, and you just have to go through them. And I think that that's hard. I think that if you're a person that, you know, felt slighted by the way that the plot went and the narrative perspective, as well as certain things that these characters uncharacteristically would do, all I would say is I understand, I empathize, and there's nothing wrong with your feeling. I just don't agree with the amount of hate and different personal perspective with certain standpoints, because at the end of the day, this is a story that's being told, but I don't think it's being told with the intent to hurt you. I think it's with the intent to show that not everybody is able to get through a traumatic situation on the other side of good. And not everybody can have reconciliation within their heart to allow something to go through, because there are certain characters that guilt is part of their motivating factor of why they are allowing certain things to happen or not happen. Hatred and trauma is another factor that's motivating these characters. And I'm just talking about the storyline. Now, I haven't spoiled anything for you guys. So, as far as the story, do I have a problem with it? No. The way that it ends, matter of fact, if you pay attention to certain details towards the last 3 hours of the game, you're going to be looking like, where are we going here? That's all I can really say without spoiling anything. And definitely, at the end of the game, pay attention to the very last steal after the end credits. That's all I'm gonna say. If you caught what I'm trying to say. Now, everything else is amazing, bro. The freaking art and the environment and the vigor, like certain shots are so much like naturally fluid that it makes you question, like, you know, the whole entire time it's a game. It's not like it's photorealistic, but it is the closest that we've gotten from an interactive gaming experience to be just natural. Like, there's moments in water, there's moments in snow, there's moments where you just like, there was one moment I was just sitting there playing in the snow with Abby against some random kids, and like it just teaches you certain aspects about gameplay and teaching you how to duck and cover and maneuver, and you're just like, the normal moments and movements are just so fluid and natural that Naughty Dog, to their credit, did a masterful job with this, because every single moment that you're doing certain things, even especially in the beginning, teaches you certain aspects about how to play the game. By the end of the game, you will have mastered the game. If you got as far as like 10 hours, you will understand how the gameplay works. You will be able to shoot people in the head. You will be able to maneuver. You will be able to survive with nothing. There's a moment in the game that, I kid you not, was one of the most scariest situations. No, it's two. I take that back. There's one moment in the woods, pitch black, can't see nothing. I'm not even gonna say what character you are, but you have absolutely nothing in hand, and you have to think in your head, like, do you run or do you fight? And my head was like, oh no, I will not get taken down. And that feeling of immersion, that you have to do something about this to try to keep this person alive, to keep the people around you alive, that survival instinct comes in on every level in this game. Like the gameplay and the immersion experience is so good that I just was like, it was a lot. I spent like 8 days to beat this game, and I spent 48 hours until I actually recording this right now. So I say all that to say that it was a immersive experience from a visual and a scope, the VFX, the movements of everything, the meticulous details of certain things were amazing. And I haven't even gotten into the gameplay. I'll go into that in just a second. But this second moment was in kind of a hospital situation. And I kid you not, bro, I was like, yo, I don't know what game I'm in. This feels like Silent Hill. this feels like Resident Evil. Like I was feeling with so much anxiety, and it was like my survival instincts were there, but I think this is the thing. This is the thing that I think is the genius of this game. And only people that's actually playing it, not watching it, like literally playing it, can be able to attest to this. When I'm playing the game, right, I know what it takes the precision to shoot something in the head. I know, I can go and maneuver and dodge and duck to go and, take out something. I know the fundamentals. At a certain point, you understand the fundamentals. The issue is when you are emotionally compromised is when you have to survive. And what I mean by that is, in certain circumstances, like that hospital situation, I was emotionally compromised because I was scared. Like, I was kind of like, yo, what am I supposed to do with this? Like, I can't run from this. And I also don't feel like I'm going to survive this. So, like, I'm starting to miss shots, and I'm losing bullets, and, like, at a certain point, like, I'm just compromised. It doesn't matter how well my skill set is, I was compromised. And I think that that's one of the craziest things is that I don't care how precise of a gamer you actually are, you're going to feel compromised with the decisions that you make in mid-gameplay, which is crazy. I mean, the narrative already invokes certain things, but the actual gameplay puts you in this situation where you're like, oh, I got it, okay. Then you're like, come on, snap out of it. There was one moment, it's probably the most heart-wrenching moments of the game, to be quite honest with you. The first 2.5 hours, and I was playing the role of Ellie, and I heard, screams and cries, and like, if you understood what was going through my head, I was telling myself, I think I actually recorded it, I was telling myself, it's just a game. A reason why I was telling myself that wasn't because like I was like, in my head was like, I gotta go save this person. Like, I need to run in and save this person. But I was like, if I do that, I'm gonna die or this person's gonna die. And like the game constantly puts you in scenarios like that or worse. And so from that standpoint, it's amazing. The gameplay mechanics take what they actually did from the first game and they overlay it 10 times over. And what I mean by that is to add like the new abilities of being able to dodge and maneuver and be able to stab, shake, like even for Ellie, like one of the things I hated about the first game was that you always sit there and didn't have, like you get a shiv and it would break and like you couldn't, like if you're in a situation you couldn't survive. Ellie has a consistent like knife in this one, so it's like she can always be able to survive on certain standpoints. But then there's a difference in gameplay when it comes to the character Abby. She's a lot stronger, she's got a bigger arsenal, but she doesn't have what Ellie has, which of course we know Ellie is like immune, she's got different traits, she understands how to maneuver fast, she's very fast, and Abby is completely different. So there's different styles of play. And it's kind of like, there was moments where I was kind of like, yo, Abby can actually shoot really well. Like, I was like, I had to play that up. And then I did, like, one thing I realized when it came to playing between Abby and Ellie, I was like, Ellie is a tacticianer. She's very good at tactician work. But Abby is a grunt. Like, she's really good at offensive gameplay. And that's not to say you can't go and get buck with either one. I'm not saying that. But I'm saying that it's a versatility between the different game mechanics and so many different arsenals of, like, weapons and like constructs and like things that like throughout that I was kind of like in my head I was like, I gotta construct this really quickly. This entire game bows when you're doing gameplay, like you don't just like go and shoot something, you don't just go and stop, you're assessing their environment consistently, because if you don't, you're gonna die. Every single time that I was going in with a group of different people, the other thing that I'll say is commending to Neil and his team is that you felt sorry for a lot of the people that you're actually killing or had to go in contact with. Sometimes I would try to avoid situations if I could, and sometimes I didn't have a choice, you know what I'm saying? And then sometimes I was invoked within an emotional response because I was upset. And I was like, no, you are going to die. It ain't even a question. Like, no, I can't believe you did that, you know? And every single time, you still feel that level of dread because every single NPC has their own name. There's moments where, like, you might have a person, like, I'll take the word named Carl. Carl is like somebody I just took out silently and I killed him, right? And all of a sudden, a girl comes up, maybe, and it's like, oh my God, Carl, like, what's going on? Like, what happened to Carl? There's somebody here, get him, like. And then you start to, either one, it's a fight or flight. You're like, all right, also on alert, I gotta get ready. And you have to turn your brain off to that. But sometimes you're like, yo, like, I just did that, you know, and that is that is masterful gameplay. Then you got the actual infected, which they got different ranges of infected now. The there's a class of infected that I really do hate, and it ain't the one that y'all thinking about. There's ones that you can't hear at all, and bruh, the way that you have to deal with them is so strategic. You have to go with everything, and like you have to be quick on your feet. This is a thinking man's game. This is an emotionally immersive game. Those that are actually visually watching it, like you're just kind of seeing what the effects are happening. But us as playing it, we have to be thinking on our feet. We have to be meticulous, and at the same time, we have to be subjective in what's going on, or else our motivation to even play through everything is going to be obscured. Like you're just either one, you're going to be trying to get through it, or you're two, you're just trying to get past it. And I think that getting through it and get past it are two different things. I was trying to get past it. I was trying to get to my race, man, because by the end of it, I went through every range of emotion you could think of. I was happy, I was joyous, I was thrilled, I was anxiety-ridden, I was fearful, I was hateful, I was upset, and I was emotionally, traumatically compromised. And by the end of it, I think that I felt this level of satisfaction and gratification of being done. Not because I was like, finally it's done. Like, no, it's like I went through all these different ranges of emotion, and then at the end, like I got it. I really, truly got it. And I think that just from that perspective alone makes this one of the greatest games I've ever played, or probably ever will play. I think it's gonna be really hard for me to go back and play it again, but I've already talked to, some of my friends, like I'm gonna play with them. Me, Jarrell Alexandria, and CJ from Three Black Geeks, we're talking about having like a really intimate discussion on like different spoilers, because I have not talked to you guys anything about spoilers. I haven't talked to you about honestly anything, to be quite honest with you guys. I've just laid out the foundations for what's going on. Again, anybody that has an issue with the way the narrative went, whether it was just all over the place, it felt like, or it's too much thrown at you, or it was just pulverizing to your spirit, I feel like there's justification to feeling that way. I don't have any issue with feeling that way. But to say that the game is a terrible game, that is a fundamental error in statement. I don't think the game is bad in any way, shape, or form. I don't think that it's for everybody. I don't think it's for people personally to just kind of like bash for no good reason either. So I think that there's a middle ground there, and you just have to figure out where it is for you. But if you get a chance, play it, personalize it, and try your best to get through it. And there's plenty of people out there that don't just feel hatred towards the game. Some people that feel subjectively different, like me. And again, I've not talked to you guys about the things that messed me up emotionally, or I had issue with within the narrative, because I don't want to spoil it and I'm not going to spoil it. But just because there's narrative choices that were made does not allow me to say that this was bad. Like, I didn't know where this was going. And when it went and it finally got to where it needed to go, I get it. I really do get it, and I appreciate it. Thank you, Naughty Dog. Thank you, Neil Druckmann. Thank you to the animated creators. This has been in the works for 6 to 7 years, So I look at The Last of Us 1 and Last of Us 2 in tandem. I don't look at them as part 1, part 2. They're definitely, effectively, completely different games. Not saying they're not. But it's because of the ramifications that happened at the end of that game that provoked everything moving forward in this one. And even more interesting is there is a remark that was said in, if you played the Left Behind, which is a prequel to The Last of Us, came out like 2014, where Ellie was talking to one of her best friends, which tragically what happened to that person, is what was your deepest fear? And ultimately it was like to end up alone. And everybody in this game, in some way, shape, or form, not just experiences of loss, but they experience that same exact fear. Whether they go out on the inside of it or not, is for the story to tell you. I will talk more about this later on. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this review. I went through a lot. I don't have any kind of pictures or anything up. This is just my raw, unfiltered, non-spoiler review for The Last of Us 2. Again, do your best. If you feel a certain way, there's nothing wrong with that. I just don't bode with hating the game at all. I think that you can feel offended. You can feel abused. You can feel traumatically, like, emotionally compromised. But I can't say it was a bad game. It's probably one of the best games I've ever played. Period. Like that's just my personal perspective on it. And I will be going and giving you guys a more in-depth thought on spoilers. My spoiler review is going to sound a lot differently because I'm going to be talking about specific things that I had issue with and things that really bothered me. Throughout my experience playing it. There were nights, and I think I'm going to make a video about this. I'm going to do a 8-day video, which basically is going to take every single day after I stop playing, where I kind of talk with my friend Ty about like my perspective on it, because Ty and Chitty like watched the game and played along with me, kept my emotions up, and also experienced it with me. But we talked about the game afterwards, and I think that those conversations are going to be a very interesting retrospective to go and look at. So I'm going to let you guys do that, as well as I'm going to put and upload every single one of the gameplay moments of those 8 days. Those are already on YouTube, but I'm also going to put them on Twitch and YouTube again with my actual face, because I actually recorded my full reactions of them. And so hopefully you guys do enjoy that. And some of you guys wanted me to do highlights. I'll try to do that as well. But anyway, hopefully you guys enjoyed this review for The Last of Us Part 2. Keep it locked. JVS, we ain't gonna stop. Oh, review number? Y'all gonna be upset. 10. So, anyway. Peace, guys.